Here's a fun little G7 side quest. PM Anthony Albanese is going to negotiate a defence agreement with the European Union, which might make about as much sense as Australia taking part in Eurovision. FYI, that's Manjimup's Gojo the Milkshake Man, and I won't hear a bad word about him. But as for a defence pact with the EU, well, here's a map that shows just how close we are to Europe. As you can see, not very close. But it all came about when European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spotted this bloke at Pope Leo's inauguration last month. She obviously saw Albo in his Akubra and thought, we need to team up with that Crocodile Dundee-looking fella.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Exactly what such a deal could look like remains unclear, but it might involve military exercises and cooperation in areas like cybersecurity and critical technologies. Of course, the real reason behind it is that no ally of America currently trusts Donald Trump to come to their aid in the case of an emergency.
Sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart.
And of course, then there's US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth demanding every country spend up big.
A commitment to 5% defense spending across this alliance.
So everyone is looking for a plan B right now, and Albo's Akubra is clearly the milkshake bringing all the countries to the yard. Anthony Albanese is in Canada for the G7 summit, and he's already sat down with his Canadian counterpart, PM Mark Carney.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is today on his way to the G7 summit in Canada with a talk locked in with US President Donald Trump.
Well, we've seen a lot of world leaders, Mark, over the past few months meet with Donald Trump at the White House very publicly, cameras rolling. Hasn't always gone very well for those world leaders. This talk with Donald Trump and Anthony Albanese, will it happen in front of cameras or will this be behind closed doors and then there'll be a press conference afterwards?
Yeah, exactly. So there'll be a bit of a grip and grin for the cameras as they meet. So, they'll meet, smile, shake hands, and they'll go into an ante-room at the conference centre, and that will be a private meeting. There won't be any media at that meeting, so they can speak frankly for probably, 30 minutes or so, if Donald Trump can spare that time. And then the Prime Minister will certainly do a press conference after that, and Donald Trump, who knows, but his tendency is to speak to the US media on board Air Force One on the way back from these sorts of events. And I suspect that's what he'll do because of the timing of it, essentially, Ben, because it is the last thing that he does here in Canada, and Donald Trump will be really eager to get back to Washington because of everything that's going on domestically in the US at the moment.